The truth, you're not going to get health care to these people by threatening to tax and eat the rich. You raise billionaires' taxes, they just leave the state. Or they leave the country. Or in some cases, the planet. I kid Elon, but you know, he had a good idea recently that might be apropos here. During the recent government shutdown, he volunteered to pay all the TSA workers himself, you know, with couch money. That's how super rich our super rich are. They can single-handedly fund entire government programs. Okay, so let's make that a thing. The Adopt a Cause Challenge for billionaires.
To be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing... Let me finish, I'll give you a chance. The cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, you know, you go look at New York versus Florida, okay? Roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? Streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party.
So Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and others have spent years pushing the tax the rich message as the answer to America's economic problems. But Bill Maher believes that approach ignores reality. During a recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, Maher strongly criticized progressive leaders for creating policies he says are driving wealthy Americans out of high-tax states. His comments sparked intense debate and quickly became one of the most talked-about moments from the show.
Well, someone has to explain the American economy to me. I know I've said this before. I still don't get it. Last week was tax day, and as usual, because HBO is so generous, and I'm sure so will be the new owners, I paid to the government, if you add in state tax, local sales, property, fees, Obamacare, probably almost 60% of what I earn. That's a lot, and I still wouldn't mind if Bernie Sanders would stop saying the rich don't pay taxes. And while I'm sure the super rich with their army of accountants and corporate loopholes get away with murder, us regular rich people pay a ton of taxes.
Maher wasted no time challenging the long-standing argument that wealthy Americans are not paying enough in taxes. Speaking from personal experience, he explained that more than half of his income already goes to taxes every year. That is why he pushes back so strongly when politicians portray wealthy people as selfish or irresponsible. According to Maher, the reality is far more complicated than the political slogans often repeated on campaign stages. His core argument is simple. Before demanding even higher taxes, politicians should first acknowledge how much many high earners are already contributing.
The top 10% pay 72% of all federal income taxes, and the bottom half, 3%. The Democratic Socialists talk about socialism like we don't already have a lot. Social Security, unemployment, Medicare, nutritional assistance, Medicaid, Obamacare, disability, housing subsidies. Again, not against it, just the same question. How can you be soaking the rich and failing the poor so badly?
That frustration, according to Maher, is one of the main reasons wealthy residents are leaving states with extremely high taxes. He pointed to California as an example, arguing that residents pay enormous amounts in taxes yet continue to see homelessness, deteriorating infrastructure, rising crime concerns, and government inefficiency. In his view, taxpayers are watching billions of dollars flow into state programs while many major problems remain unresolved year after year. As a result, many people, especially top earners, are deciding to leave in search of states with lower taxes and a lower cost of living.
Because I'd like to keep more of my money too, and
how many people moved out of your state, California?
Oh, I know. No,
Under Newsom?
Yeah, no. People do move. There's no doubt about that. People move in America, and you're right.
No, but they're not moving because they want a better view. They like to keep more of their money that they earn.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Look, Florida is a really good case study. So when DeSantis became governor, there were 250,000 more registered Democrats in Florida when he became governor 8 years ago. Now there's 1.4 million more registered Republicans in Florida. That's all migration from COVID and re-registration from COVID, 100%. Right. So it absolutely is happening.
For Maher, this issue is more than political commentary. It directly affects his own future. Despite living in California for decades, he admitted that he has considered leaving because he no longer feels the state is delivering results that match the enormous tax burden placed on residents. And he is far from alone. Large numbers of people have relocated from California to neighboring or lower tax states over the past several years. Maher argues that when even longtime supporters of taxation begin questioning whether the system still works, it signals a much deeper problem with how government money is being managed.
Truth, you're not going to get health care to these people by threatening to tax and eat the rich. You raise billionaires' taxes, they just leave the state. Or they leave the country. Or in some cases, the planet. I kid Elon, but he had a good idea recently that might be apropos here. During the recent government shutdown, he volunteered to pay all the TSA workers himself, with couch money. That's how super rich our super rich are. They can single-handedly fund entire government programs. Okay, so let's make that a thing. The Adopt a Cause challenge for billionaires.
At the same time, Maher made it clear that he is not arguing against taxation altogether. He believes wealthy Americans should contribute to society and help fund public services. However, he says the conversation should shift away from endlessly demanding higher taxes and focus instead on accountability. In his view, politicians should spend more time investigating how existing tax revenue is being used, where waste occurs, and why so many expensive government programs fail to produce visible improvements. Raising taxes without fixing inefficiency, he argues, only deepens public frustration.
Homes or disaster victims, whatever it is, make the rich competitive about solving it, because that's all they care about anyway, beating each other. Yeah. Just skip the middleman, the government and the healthcare bureaucracies that, for whatever reason, no matter how much they take in, never seem to get enough to the people, and just shame the billionaires into doing it directly, because they have all the money, and noblesse oblige isn't just the name of a cologne.
Maher also floated an unconventional idea that completely changes the traditional debate. Instead of relying entirely on government systems, he suggested giving wealthy individuals direct responsibility for solving major public problems. One billionaire could focus on homelessness, another on repairing infrastructure, and another on improving schools or emergency services. His point was not necessarily that billionaires should replace government, but that direct accountability creates visible results. According to Maher, people are losing trust because massive amounts of public money disappear into complicated bureaucracies with very little transparency about where it actually goes.
To be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing... Let me finish, I'll give you a chance. The cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, look at New York versus Florida, okay? Roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? The streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party.
Maher argued that the problems seen in California are not isolated. He pointed to New York as another example of a high-tax state struggling with rising living costs, public safety concerns, and growing dissatisfaction among residents. Despite enormous tax revenue, many working families continue to face financial pressure from housing prices, inflation, and daily expenses. Critics of these policies believe government leaders continue asking for more tax money while failing to deliver meaningful improvements in everyday life.
Danny's election will lead more financial organizations to leave New York City for Wall Street South in Florida. Tell me, I've read that term just recently, Wall Street South, Florida. This is your state. What is that?
A lot of Wall Street guys have moved to Palm Beach. It's been happening really since COVID. It's accelerated with increases in taxes. It's not just out of New York. It's New Jersey, Connecticut, it's Chicago, it's California.
So they're fleeing high tax blue states for Florida.
However, Maher also acknowledged that not every case of population decline is caused by taxes alone. Cities like Chicago and states such as New Jersey have also seen residents move away, but often for different reasons, including climate, housing preferences, retirement plans, or lifestyle changes. What makes California and New York different, according to Maher, is the growing belief among many residents that they are paying extremely high taxes without receiving enough value or effective public services in return.
This is the luckiest guy in the world that Mandani got elected, because his district is going to explode. My house, I live 8 miles outside of Queens, has gone up 20% in value since Mandani announced. Okay?
Because
people aren't going to pay the punishing taxes. New York is the highest tax state in the union.
But you said your house value's gone up.
Yeah, because they're moving to Nassau County.
Oh, they're moving out of the city.
Out of the city, and they can still take the train back in the city and not pay the millionaire's tax or whatever crazy thing this guy wants. But what people don't understand is he can't raise the taxes unless the state okays it, and the state is not going to okay it.
There is also a larger economic ripple effect tied to this migration. As wealthy individuals move to states like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee, housing prices and living costs in those areas often rise as well. While low-tax states benefit from new investment and economic activity, longtime residents can also face higher rents, rising home prices, and increased financial pressure. Critics argue that the consequences of aggressive tax policies do not remain confined to one state. They can reshape housing markets and local economies across.
Democrats used to own Silicon Valley. Those California do-gooder liberals who wanted to save the planet. Yeah, right. Trump came along and said, regulations? We don't need no stinking regulations. Not only did he win them over, in his second inauguration, they were all sitting up on the stage with him. There was an entire section that looked like the full range of the autism spectrum. Kamala ran on democracy, which is the most important issue. But without the political skill to sell it, it added up to nothing. Meanwhile, Trump was running on, I'll make the poop go down.
In the end, Maher's message is that the debate should move beyond simple political slogans. He believes wealthy Americans are already contributing substantial amounts in taxes, and that the bigger issue is whether governments are spending that money effectively. According to him, public trust continues to erode when taxpayers see rising costs but little visible improvement in services or quality of life. Rather than focusing entirely on taxing the wealthy more, Maher argues that leaders should prioritize transparency, accountability, and reforming inefficient systems. Whether people agree with him or not, his comments have added fuel to one of America's most heated political debates.